Okay, welcome to the Conscious TV interview with Crystal Clark, continued here in our archives. Ramon, go ahead.
Well, we've had an interesting first interview, and it's only gonna get better in the part two. I'm gonna start with a very quick story. I was on the train, well, that would be my last night, and there were two blind women. And one thing I found remarkable is the entire train was packed, and everybody had a very stern face, including myself. And these two blind women were constantly smiling throughout the whole half an hour ride. They were smiling, which made me smile, and I was just so drawn in to them because if they were smiling. So my question to you is, our misery and our stern faces and the job and all this, that look that we get, that's something that's learned, is it?
Well, I would say that it's definitely learned, but it comes from a multitude of sources. And I think, the universe is set up this way. It's not, people say, well, it's chaos and humans came out of green slime and it was all accidental, and it just doesn't work that way. There are laws and rules and guidelines in place for everything that happens. So some of the suffering that we go through, we bring on ourselves. Some of it comes from having accepted false ideologies that themselves bring suffering. And we get so hooked on it. I think one of the worst things that ever happened to this planet is money. I mean, if you look at everything going on, if you took away money, can you see what a difference that would make? If there was no gold, no silver, no money, I mean, it would just change everything so much. But I think that we're all so hooked on, or, well, some of us have kind of outgrown it somewhat because you really have to at some point. But the reality that we have now, somebody gave to us, and we accepted it. And I think that there's an awful lot of pain involved in accepting it and also in not accepting it. Because once you've accepted it, it becomes your reality. And then when you leave that reality behind, what do you replace it with? So there's a very real struggle there too. And then there are the things that we do for money that we shouldn't be doing. So we have a lot of different teachers, as you learned on the train when you saw those two women smiling. Those two women were your teachers that day.
Yeah, it was just amazing because I've noticed that with a lot of blind people, they're just always smiling, or people who I can't remember the name of the disorder, when they can't really move or think for themselves or do anything for themselves, they have these big smiles, and that goes to show you that that's naturally who you are. The part that's coming out
That's a beautiful thing, what you just said. That is exactly right. We are by nature beautiful, happy human beings. Our nature is to be like children. And to, I don't know if you have children, Ramon, but I know that Tom does. She's a little bit older, but until a person has children, I don't think they could really appreciate life until you see it through the eyes of a child. Everything is magnificent to a child. A bug, oh, look at that bug, a tree of dandelion. We lost that. We lost the inner child, which is filled with nothing but innocence and joy. And it's in a way, it's not even so much that we lost it, but that we willingly gave it up because we decided to replace it with things like money. We're going to get out of that. We're going to go back to that which matters most eventually, and I think it's coming sooner than a lot of people can appreciate. But you're right. I mean, think of I try to explain this to people sometimes because I don't think they really understand. But has there ever been a child born on this planet that was born with hate and fear or prejudice? It doesn't happen. That it all has to be learned, and it's unfortunate that I think the children of today are just some of the most troubled children, and the way they behave and is a reflection of the world that they live in. And it's unfortunate, but it is going to change. And I think if we could just get back to the inner child, and it's funny because, Tom was saying a while ago how people find being optimistic really obnoxious, and they do. I've had people get really, really irritated with me repeatedly because I'm a very optimistic person, but that's because I'm not afraid to be happy. I'm not afraid to be happy. I don't know why people want to be upset all the time, but it's an addiction.
It really is.
Yeah,
so
it is.
I have a couple problems with envisioning what it will look like, and I don't know if really. I think maybe I focus too much on the logistics. How's food going to be dispensed? How's healthcare? How's all these things going to work out? And I think maybe part of my problem is instead of focusing on that, just focus on having that happy life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of truth to that because what makes you genuinely happy, which is the key, right? To be a genuinely happy person, that's where all of those things that will make the future the kind of future we should have happen. So it's true that if you just focus on, what makes you happy, what keeps you healthy, there will come a time when that's what people focus on, and it's through focusing on that we get this new beautiful future that everybody is talking about. That's really how it happens. It doesn't happen through an external savior because the outer world is a reflection of our inner world. If you change the inside, the outside changes. So I think a lot of people are so caught up in trying to change the outside, but you and I are not responsible for the actions of other people. We did not come here to be responsible for the actions of other people. We are responsible for ourselves. But if we don't connect that idea to the fact that we are incredibly powerful beings and that the changes that we make, even if they are internal to the self, ripple out into infinity. And it's kind of like you were saying earlier, Ramon, about that story I used in the book where one person may read this book, as a child and they grow up to be a great leader someday. I mean, that's how it happens. It really is one person at a time, but it spreads really, really fast if we do it right. And I think there are a lot of people doing it right. In the second book that I wrote, When Tomorrow Comes, I actually addressed that because I see that a lot. I see that people don't know what the future should look like. It's one thing to know what's wrong and what doesn't work, but it's another thing to know what does. And I think that's where a lot of people are getting hung up is, oh my God, this is all going away. What are we going to do? They're not getting to the phase where they're considering, what should I do? What should it look like? If this isn't it, and we've messed it up, if this is wrong, then what is right? So that was something I really focused on in the second book in Timeline 1 was a vision of the future, a future that doesn't use money, a future that people don't rob each other, they don't murder each other. What would that look like? Because I think that some people are so far removed from it that they can't even envision it. And I thought, well, maybe if I could get people to envision it and live it out, even through a fictional story, it wouldn't be so strange.
I will definitely have to pick that up real soon.
Yeah, same here.
And it's a neat future. I mean, it really is. I mean, a lot of the technology that we use now is technology we don't need. And you guys know that. I mean, it's idiotic that we're driving around in cars that use gasoline when we know they have free energy.
Mm-hmm.
Free energy is a one-law technology, and that's the thing is that when people know the one law, when they understand how everything is created, everything else that's nonsense stands out like a sore thumb. Like the characters in a cartoon, they hit their thumb and it gets all swollen and it starts throbbing red, and it's once you know the sacred science, everything that doesn't fit stands out so tremendously. We have, the carbon taxes and all this nonsense. I mean, it's so ridiculous. It's pathetic. We are carbon-based life forms, for crying out loud. So they're taxing life. People don't get that. I mean, so I think the more people that figure it out, the faster people are going to say, okay, this isn't working. We're going to get past it, but it's going to take a while. I think patience and grace and forgiveness are going to be really important over the next few years.
I have a quote from Alex Coiler, or Coilier. I always mess up his last name. He's a contactee with the Andromedans, and his quote says that what he was told by the aliens when they were trying to understand economics. So he explained it to them, and they said, "Here's the question I don't understand." He goes, "Why do you have to pay for a planet you were born on?" And that hit me like a ton of bricks when I heard that.
You know, it's so great that you zeroed in on that, because that exact story is in the second book. That exact story, because it's in fact, if you guys go to the Book Locker website, which is you can find on my blog page on my website, you can read the first 2 chapters of each different timeline, and that's actually in one of the very first chapters.
Oh, cool.
Because people don't understand that. Why are we paying? You see, this is what people don't get. If people understood what it took to create, regenerate, and uphold life, we would immediately cut money out of the picture, because you don't own life. There's a reason money doesn't grow on trees, because money bypasses life and nature. And that's the system that we've accepted. And so now we have a world that doesn't function because we have bypassed nature, and nature is life. You can't live without it. So I think it's great that people are actually starting to ask that question. Why? First of all, why are people allowed to buy the rights to life when they can turn around and decide who they sell it back to and for what price? What sense does that make?
Yeah, and that's religion and money, I see as the same thing, both major control organizations.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's the other thing, too, is that every law that we have, creationally speaking, from the point of view of the sacred science, or what is referred to as the one law, there's an example I use in the book about an iron axe and water.
Oh, I love that.
Each of these 2 different things have very specific laws attached to them, which makes them what they are. And when you combine these 2 laws, there's a very specific reaction that takes place. So when I say law, that's what I mean. I'm saying that all of creation was programmed very much like, we're at a place now with our own technology where we can really understand what this means because we have computers. But every single thing in existence has a literal code, a program. And those programs were, in the beginning, before we started messing with everything, programmed to create, regenerate, and uphold life. When we don't know that, we start to mess with things, and we take a little bit out of this, and we put a little bit in here, and you start splicing all this stuff together, and basically what you get is a Frankenstein world that doesn't function anymore. And that's kind of where we are right now, because we didn't know. We shouldn't have GMO foods. We shouldn't be splicing together human and animal DNA. We shouldn't be doing all of these things. You know what I mean?
Speaking of...
So, well, I just want to make this point really quick, because I think a lot of people don't make this connection, but religion is not teaching the sacred science. Religion is teaching people how to be victims and how to wait for an external savior, but I know that they knew at one point, because you cannot look at their portrayal of the devil and see that they don't know, because it's a chimera. That's what it is. It's all of these different pieces of animals and humans all stuck together in this thing. And of course, what does live spell backwards? It's really that simple.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
So, you were talking about the splicing and the chimera and all that stuff. You have a chapter in your book, Enoch and the Watchers, where it talks about the Nephilim and such. Is that where this splicing of our race began? Do you think that's where the first point where we took the turn towards the control system started?
Well, it was something that I researched a lot, but I think that from my own experience and what I came across, humankind, as we should probably term it, has been around for millions and millions of years. We're very, very old beings. Perhaps the form is